All right. Hello, hello, and welcome. My name is Eli Schwartz, and I'll be leading you through today's session. We have a ton of content to go through, but really, this session is all for you. Our Kaplan's free GRE boot camps is really a chance for you to get a better sense of how you're doing, what you need, how to tackle the test, how to get the most out of it. But as far as our session goes, I want to check on two things first. One, I want to make sure that the chat works, that you know how to use it, how to communicate back and forth with me and the other GRE experts who are up here in the room. So I want you to think of how to say hello in a language of your choice. Hit me up down here in chat. I want to see some hey, some howdy, some hellos in a language of your choice, though. You get to pick. This is just to check out, make sure that the chat's working. And it's also to show off one more thing. The chat goes through an automatic filter system. So you might put a chat through and it might take 5 or 10 seconds for that chat to go through, or a tiny bit more if multiple people are typing all at once. And that's to be expected. It's not a tech issue on your end. All of those will go through once the system automatically updates those chats that come through. So I see bonjour from Joel, from Camille. I see namaste from Fagarazzi. I see yo from Brian. Awesome. Now, again, obviously, this is totally live. Everyone is chatting live. I'm responding live. Howdy. Hi, Mati. Hi, Tamara. Cool. Welcome. Now, the point is, you'll put a chat through, and if it doesn't show through in 5 or 10 seconds, don't feel like you have to put it through again. Don't feel like you have to send a separate tech issue note to us. It's okay. We got it. And also, if you have a private question, if you have something that is just about your test or just about your preparation that you're planning for, we might handle that privately and not even send a response back to everybody, just send a response back directly to you. And that's why we have so many GRE experts up in here to answer those questions. So shalom, Jacob, welcome, guten Tag to you. More of the evening here, gute Nacht, perhaps at least where I am. Welcome, Courtney. Privet. I see Ola, Allison. Awesome. I love the variety here. But this is kind of to show off another feature. In our online classes and the vast majority of classes we teach, but certainly these online ones, we always see a lot of variety of students. Maraba to you as well, Raven. Hello, Ellie. Awesome, Jen. Aloha to Joseph. Hopefully you missed the hurricane that kind of swept through there as well. And the point of this is you will have people in the classroom sessions that you take that have strengths in the areas you need the most help with. You'll also have questions that come up that you know how to tackle 100%, but someone else needs that help and needs that additional coaching. Really, that's how I kind of think about these sessions. Yeah, I'm a teacher. Yes, I'm a tutor. Yes, I work test preparation, but I like to think of it more as a coach. You are all part of the team. Some of you have strengths in certain areas, some have strengths in other areas. And as a team, we can kind of rock and roll through this and get the most possible out of our time together. So without further ado, we've got to jump in and get the most out of this session. Let's start with just a basic setting expectations. Obviously, welcome. Again, my name is Eli Schwartz. I've been teaching for Kaplan since 2005. I'll let everybody do the quant work on that, figure out how long I've been here. But since 2005, I've literally helped thousands of students work on improving the scores to what they need it to be, what they expect it to be, what they deserve for the amount of prep and the amount of effort they've put in to ace the GRE. So welcome. I love that you are here, and I'm psyched that you took the time out of your evening, for some of us very late evenings, to put in this effort. That's the kind of grit, that's the motivation that helps the best test takers succeed. Now, as far as understanding the GRE is concerned, we're going to break it down into a couple main components, arguably the pieces that you care about the most. Why do you have to take the test? How important is it for your application? And what is with the adaptive scoring engine that they use to place you among that? How does that exactly work? Then we'll talk a little bit about some test strategies, just really some ways to think about it. And then finally, general recommendations for success. What can we do from this point forward? Now, I say that, but my expectation is this. You will be paying attention. You'll be chiming down here in chat. You'll be giving feedback. And as we go through, if you think of a specific question for how you plan on prepping, or a specific area that you need the most help with, and you want a little bit of one-on-one feedback about that, just type expert before your question, and that will go automatically to one of our experts to field any of the GRE experts in here. We have about 6 or 7 other GRE experts who can answer those. And then they'll be able to quickly flag that and give you a one-on-one response to that question. That's our goal here, really. We're going to do some boot camp. We're going to give you some feedback on GRE, but we're also trying to make sure you get the most out of it personally. This is not just a big seminar lecture class that you might have had in undergrad. Now, that said, we've got to jump in and do some work. First up is answering that question. What is the reason that we care so much about the GRE? Well, hit me up down here in chat. What did you think was going to be the most important part of your admissions package to grad school before seeing this chart? What did you think was going to be most important? And again, remember, there will be the 5 to 10 second delay as you send in chat responses, and that's just the automatic system pulling those responses, making sure there's no swear words or anything illicit or something, and then popping it back out into chat. So don't worry, no tech glitch, no delay. GPA is usually the response that I see. I saw it from Emanuela, from Angelica, from Caitlin, from Megan, from Hannah, from everybody. GPA. And by far, that is the most common misconception, that GPA makes the biggest difference to your admissions. I see a lot of letters of rec in here as well. And unfortunately, letters of recommendation are also a little bit of a misconception. Right? All of us have been told, oh, have Dr. So-and-so write your letter of rec, or have this person who used to be a professor emeritus at that university, have them write your letters of rec. But unfortunately, letters of recommendation, unless you truly do have an in with that particular doctor on the particular admissions group, letters of recommendation still fall far short of even GPA. Hopefully, again, whatever misconceptions you came in here with, this helps you get a little bit more context. GPA is important. Absolutely no question. A good letter of recommendation, yes, will fill in some of the holes that your CV or your application in general just couldn't hit. But the vast majority of schools use as an initial determining most important factor for whether your application goes directly in the yes pile, sits in the maybe pile until they look at the rest of the stuff, or falls off the no pile right away. And you have to remember that schools are seeing thousands and thousands of applications in certain departments, and they can be extremely competitive. So the schools need a fast way to at least eliminate the fluff, at least eliminate the absolute no's. If you're coming in with a mid-range to high GPA, great, you're probably in a cohort of other mid to high range GPAs. If you have a decent letter of recommendation and some soft skills outside of your core classes, awesome, you're in a cohort of those. But the GRE is really an excellent opportunity for you to show the schools that, yeah, we went to different colleges, we went to different universities, but on this one standardized measurement that everybody took, that everybody has parallel standardized against each administration of the exam, I did this much better than those other people. I completely rocked where they only did okay. So what I usually tell people is, absolutely what Kat put down here in chat about 10, 15 seconds ago is the thing that I always say too, that the GRE is the easiest part of your application to dramatically improve right now. If you're planning on taking the test, as about 3/4 of us in today's session are planning on doing in the next couple weeks, or for the rest of us within the next couple months, if you're planning on taking the test soon, think about how much you have the opportunity to improve your GRE score compared to how much could you improve your GPA in the next 2 weeks. How much could you improve your personal statement in 2 weeks compared to the enormous increase you can make in the GRE score? So it's not to say, don't work on any of your schoolwork, or don't go to your actual work and only take time to study for the GRE. But it is to say maybe the extra stuff that you were going to do, like Taco Tuesdays with friends, or going to that book club for an extra couple hours, or sitting at the gym for 3 or 4 hours, maybe we take that time back and put it really into dedicated GRE study. So what I want to know now is, how interested are you in finding out how the GRE is actually scored so you can game the test. I want to know, how interested are you in finding out how much GRE makes a difference for those schools that are using it as their absolute determining factor? Are you interested? Should I just skip to doing other things? Maybe do some sample problems instead. Just ignore those elements of the... Okay, are you interested? So let's jump in and take a look. Because again, like I said, I've been teaching this test for 13 years now. And there's so much that has tweaked over the years that if you can kind of game the test and figure out the best way for you to benefit from it, that's going to make the biggest difference overall for your ability to stay motivated, keep up the endurance, put in the effort that's necessary. So, all right, let's jump in. And of course, to Ellie's request, we are certainly going to do some sample problems soon. Don't worry. And this is boot camp. They're going to be hard sample problems to try and show you some methods of critical thinking. So as far as those of you who are interested in what's going on with GRE testing in general, notice this trend we have seen over the past couple of years. And this has only increased over the past 2 years. We have seen an enormous increase in GRE test takers, which means an increase in volume, which means an increase, unfortunately, in the pool that needs to take the GRE in order to get into their specific programs. So we have a lot more competition, but we also have a lot more competitive testers, widening out that bell curve and making it so that the higher score ranges are that much harder to reach. Remember, this is a standardized, normed exam. So the middle score is designed to hit exactly there in the 50th percentile, and the far wings, those tiny, tiny little highest and lowest possible points, are designed to be the absolute extreme ends. That becomes a little bit of an issue in the way that the score trends have been changing. Yes, it is the case that over the past several years, the general score trend for both quant and for verbal has been on the rise. That means the ability of the people taking this test, besides you, to score better than they would have in prior years has consistently been increasing. That means we are actually fighting against other test takers who are better than they used to be. If you had taken this test 5 years ago, if you'd taken it 3 years ago, you would be testing among people who were objectively, based on the numbers, doing slightly worse. So your seed, your percentile ranking would have looked better. This is not to make anybody feel bad. Right? My whole goal here is to be as honest as possible, as transparent as possible, so you know exactly what to expect. This means that we do have to try harder. We do have to put in a little bit more effort studying, practicing, looking at critical thinking, maybe looking for shortcuts or looking for multiple ways to solve certain problems so we have extra validation. And as far as the score increase is concerned, we also maybe want to find some ways to game that score a little bit to our best benefit. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have heard that it is an adaptive test, that the GRE adapts to your score breakdown. And that's true. It does it in a couple different tiers. So up here on screen, this is the general tier between sections that gives you a score range you could potentially fall into. The thing about this is remember, there's a computer algorithm that is sorting these at any given time. And while it looks like on screen that once we finish the first section, we're going to go into either the top tier, the middle tier, or the bottom tier, what really is happening at the granular level is every question gives you the opportunity to go to a slightly harder or a slightly easier question based off of where the computer algorithm thinks that harder score range or that easier score range is going to place you. If you think of it, the first question you see on test day should really be a perfect middle of the road question. Now, hit me up in chat. How do you think you would feel if you're 10, 15 questions in and it feels like the questions you're doing have become impossible? How would you feel? Maybe before I told you this information. How would you feel? You're 10 questions in, you're like halfway through section 1, and you feel like all of a sudden the questions are impossible to do. They're so hard, it feels like you're missing every other question. How would you feel before I just told you this about scoring? Well, maybe you would feel great, Brian, now that you know about this, but most of us, exactly, Sarah, right? Exactly, Casey, would feel like we're missing every other question. It's so hard. We feel like we're falling behind, freaking out. Sure, Cheryl, but the point here is, what is the computer algorithm supposed to do? It's supposed to give you questions to get a sense of where you are supposed to fall. If you're getting extremely hard questions already like halfway through the section, that means you must have gotten the first 10 or so right. And it's already launched you into the highest potential score range group. The whole point of the algorithm, just to clear up any questions, the whole point of the algorithm is it's supposed to try and get to a point where you do get one right, one wrong, one right, one wrong. Why is it supposed to do that? Because then it can go up and down by a couple points. So, oh, all right. So, I'll give you one more, just a tiny bit harder, 2 maybe points harder, 3 points harder. Oh, you got it wrong? Notch it back down 2 or 3. Oh, you got that one right. Now let's go back up 2 or 3. So how do you feel now, knowing that if you hit insanely hard questions near the end of the section, it is not that you are at the bottom of the heap and you are missing 2 or 3 questions in a row. It's that you are actually at the upper end, the highest potential score range of the echelon, if you are starting to get these extremely high difficulty, super tough questions. How does that feel now in comparison to what Colton put in here, or Anne and Queen put in here? Right now we feel awesome. Now we're like, oh, all right, cool. And really, it's to hit what Amino Base put down here in chat, that you shouldn't feel like you are getting yourself down or that you are demotivating. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to feel like the questions are tough, because they will be. But the point is to keep that momentum up, keep crushing through those couple of questions to really try and drive your score up as much as possible. So I like the still sad but less tears that came through chat a second ago. Of course, the flip side is true. If after the first handful of questions, you're getting a lot of what seems like pretty easy ones, it means that maybe you missed a couple of those first ones. And that's not a reason necessarily to be upset. It's a reason to steel yourself in confidence and focus on making sure you get the rest of those right. If you find yourself all of a sudden doing what seem like freebie, easy questions, there must have been something in there that by accident, maybe you clicked the wrong one, you ended up getting 1 or 2 wrong. The algorithm it took it a little bit of a dive. Now that's not a problem for us. The whole point of doing the first section in order to sort you into the 3 pieces is to make sure that you have time to correct that dive. Fine, we correct it, we jump back up. Now let's suppose that you're in that topmost tier, the highest potential score range. Awesome, that's our goal. Our goal is in the first 10 questions to get as many of those right as possible, to launch ourselves up so we end up in that highest potential score range for section 2A. At that point, again, same deal. Within the first 10 or so questions, to really try and make sure we get them right, to keep ourselves as high as possible before the algorithm starts doing that up, down fluctuation. Now, again, the score that you'll get will be a range. It'll tell you that you are within this range based off of the algorithm's feedback of your score. But our goal is really to game this test. So let me give you a little bit more info about what that would look like. How are we gaming it besides just try to get the first 10 right? Well, number one, because each question has that much weight early on in each section, we really want to make sure we're thinking specifically, answering the question that's right in front of us before clicking on an answer and moving on. This is not a speed test. Yes, we have to finish on time, but if you spend twice as much time up front on some of those early questions and make sure that we get them right, well, then we've already boosted ourselves into the higher tier range, Now we can kind of push through some of the other ones, maybe going a little faster than we would have liked to, but still ending on time. That's always our goal. Number 2, clues. Obviously, this is something that we'll talk about a bunch in the bootcamp in a second. Maybe we'll take a couple more minutes before we jump right into bootcamp questions. But I promise you, after this slide, bootcamp questions all the way. The thing about looking for clues and trying to get the most out of each question is making sure that we look for all of the details that have been presented, looking for the clues that exist, but not bringing in anything that's above and beyond the passage or above and beyond the question stem. This is a super common mistake, is to think that we have more clues than we actually do. Here's a great one. This is one that I always use in my classes, and you are my class now. So here's my question to you. Suppose I had a question and it was asking about an inference that you could make. So a classic style of question: which of the following is an inference that you could make based off of these next statements? Perfect. Here is the question. I want you to make an inference, and I want you to type your answer down here in chat. So if I tell you that of the experts that we have up here in room, these GRE experts, if I tell you that our GRE expert Paul does not eat ice cream, what would you be able to infer? Hit me up down here in chat. That's my question. That's the sort of thing that you might get on just a general quick question. What can we infer? Which of the following are inferences? So hit me up in chat. What is an inference you would make in the real world if I said that GRE expert Paul does not eat ice cream? All right, I see a bunch of answers about maybe Paul's choices that have been made in life. Obviously, we can't comment about Paul's decisions. Those are Paul's choices in leading the truest life that Paul can make. But certainly these lactose intolerant ones from a few different folks, from Amy, from Raven, maybe allergic. I like that one as well. Could be sensitive teeth. Maybe Carly doesn't like sweet things. Maybe he's on a diet. These are all things that we might infer in the real world, but Howard is probably the closest of any answer that I saw down here in chat. We don't necessarily know if Paul wants it or not. We don't know if Paul is sensitive to milk or not, or cold things or not. What we do know is that I told you expert Paul does not eat ice cream. So the only thing you could actually infer, yeah, Matthew, same idea, is that if we see Paul, he will be not eating ice cream. That's it. That's the only thing we can infer. We don't know if he likes it or not, diabetic or not, allergic or not, none of that stuff. And that's the sort of thing we're getting at here really with point number 2. Look for clues that have been given. Don't go above and beyond those clues. Don't try and read extra information in that wasn't actually presented. All we know is that expert Paul does not eat ice cream. All right, then the quote unquote inference is when we see Paul, he's not going to be eating ice cream. Done. Now, I got a bunch of good questions that came through, and I know that our other GRE experts have answered a lot of those privately, but a lot of good questions, essentially, that I can answer with bullet points 3, 4, and 5. Some good questions about how to get the most out of each section, and essentially kind of skipping around within sections. So as far as attacking the questions or skipping around within the sections, the real point here is to try and maximize total score. So using something like elimination, for example, to maximize your total score means even in some of those highest difficulty tier questions, we are absolutely trying to make sure we get as many of them as possible. So even if there's a question that requires a lot of work or a lot of critical thinking, we're always trying to do elimination down within those. Get rid of the answer choices that are on the extremes, get rid of the answer choices that fall off of our expectations, and then, of course, make sure that we at least make a good guess between those. And we'll talk a little bit about good educated guessing on one or two of the problems I have coming up right up next. Now, number 4, attacking problems. This is, again, a misconception that a lot of people go into the test with, that there are going to be certain questions you just can't get through no matter what. The combinations and permutation questions I'm never going to solve. Well, we're going to do one of those today. We're going to tackle one without even using the combinations and permutations formulas, because there's a critical thinking way to get through it. And then last up, employing the right strategy. So what we mean by that is really kind of piecing together each of these, but also in the Kaplan courses, we do teach a lot of long, detailed strategies for each of the different question types, just to be really, really specific about them. So what I'm going to try and show you for the next couple of questions is 2 things. One, I'm going to give you a chance to try it out on your own for every single one. But then I'm going to walk you through what is the attack strategy you should be thinking of when you hit that question. And we'll do about a minute per question, just to give you a chance to really try it out and also poll in, of course, in the answers. So let's give it a try. Here are those blanks. Here is our first question. Let's take about 1 minute. You should have an answer poll that you can poll in with, and I will, of course, be quiet. I'll set my own little timer over here. Go for it. Take 1 minute. All right, that was right there at 1 minute. Hopefully I didn't surprise anybody by coming back on microphone. But now we've got to jump in and take a look at some of these answer choices. And there's a good way for us to really try and lock this out. One of which is what we talked about a second ago, that good critical thinking, that looking for clues. Another part of it is making sure that we don't get caught up in any tempting traps, in anything that goes above and beyond stuff that we really care about. So, first of all, we have many novels being criticized for a lack of something. All right, lacking something. I don't have any clues yet about what they're lacking. It's a novel, so maybe it could lack characters. Maybe it could lack poetry. Maybe it could lack, I don't know. I don't know yet. I haven't had an additional clue, so I can't fill this blank in just yet. But I know that some fictional works of somebody, don't care, no clues, were often something for being overly realistic. Well, they were often, it sounds like either they would have been praised or they would have been railed against. Right? Either this is going to be a really positive thing, that they're overly realistic, or it's going to be a really negative thing, that they were overly realistic. I don't know quite yet whether that's going to be a really strong positive or a really strong negative. But it's something that a critic could do, because that was the clue at the very beginning, criticized for something. So a critic would either be very strongly positive or very strongly negative. At this point, we actually have enough to try and get rid of some wrong answers in blank 2. Looking down through the answers, a critic wouldn't be able to appropriate something. A critic isn't going to steal away content and use it in their own novels. A critic is somebody who is just giving feedback. So we can get rid of appropriated, which means to take and use that in some way. And between excoriated and expunged, Expunge would be like removing completely the record of. Like you would expunge a driving ticket from your driver's record. That would be removing it completely. But we know it's Mark Twain. We know Samuel Clemens. We know that the works were written. So the critics have not actually removed those pieces of literature completely from the catalog. Well, then there's only one answer left. It's excoriated. Okay, well, now we know exactly excoriated from some roots. This is, again, that critical thinking step by step. And I'm slowing it down a lot for us so you can kind of follow that process. But excoriated must be the thing I'm looking for here. It's the only one that's a strong positive or negative that a critic could do. If we had had two answers in here that said praised and excoriated, I'd have to maybe go back and look for some other clues. But only one that actually works. All right, now it's a strong negative, excoriated. That sounds really negative. That sounds really bad just from the roots of it. So something really negative. All right. They were something really negative for being too realistic. So then the thing we want to put back in our first blank is some things that were criticized for lacking. And then we have this contrary piece about Mark Twain that it was too realistic. Okay, so I would like a lack of realistic. Whatever this blank is, my prediction here is I want that blank to be realistic. Because on the other hand, these other things were often shot down for being too realistic. So my prediction for blank one is something about realism. Unfortunately, as we're going through the answers, we can probably only get rid of one immediately from the vast majority of keywords that we normally have memorized. But quiescence is a nice word to use. It's a nice SAT word or GRE word. Quiescence is like quietness. So quiescence would be inactivity or quietness in general. There's no clues in the rest of the setup about loud noises or about disruptions or anything like that. So unfortunately, we do have to get rid of this because, again, no clues. It must be verisimilitude. And verisimilitude means like realisticness, real life. So scanning through the answer choices, we have to match up with verisimilitude and excoriated. Done. And I loved Amy's comment in here like 30 or 40 seconds ago. I need to slow down. But we don't necessarily have to be going slow on test day. We just have to be able to carefully pick out the clues. I mean, thinking back to what I mentioned earlier, basically our point was, go carefully in the first pass. Think before taking action. But bullet point number 2 from that list I just had up here was look for those clues. There will always be specific clues to help you. Now, if you miss this one also, because we had about half of our group who missed this one first. If you missed it or if you were really tempted by a wrong answer, think through the way that we just processed this by finding one blank that we could actually get down to an answer, use that blank as an upshot to try and get the first one, even if we didn't have a good clue for it in the first place. And that careful piece by piece, like picking apart a knot, helps us use clues only to get to the answer. As opposed to saying, well, what if I plug in blank one and see what happens? No, that's just wasting our time. Now let's do the same thing for our next one. I will, of course, be quiet for about 1 minute. Hit me up down here in our answer poll with which ones of this one you would vote for. And of course, I'll jump back on in about 1 minute to review with you. Go for it. All right, that was exactly a minute. And this is one of my favorite questions of the whole set that we're going to do today. This is boot camp, right? So we're picking hard questions on purpose. We're picking ones that will really test you. Hit me up down here in chat. What is a word that you would have used if you were the one writing it? Like what would you have filled in that blank with even before looking at the answers? Hit me up down here in chat. It doesn't have to be one of the words that they gave, but what would you have plugged in here if you had been writing this sentence in the first place and finished it out with whatever word you wanted? Not even one of the words necessarily in there. I see a lot of success coming through here. That's usually the prediction that I see the vast majority of people say. And I saw maybe a couple people say speed in here as well. Now, I want to touch on that when we write, we usually go for simplicity. So a lot of the sentence is geared towards that something went well, that something was accomplished. So there was a difficulty, there was a great distance, it was completed with very little incident. Okay, so hold on for a second. It was completed with very little incident. Well, then that means that the difficulty thing is checked off. A, it was completed, so we know it happened, and with very little incident, so we know it was successful. Do we have to say again that it was successful? Is that a required piece that we haven't mentioned yet? Obviously, this is a rhetorical question. They've already answered that piece. They've already told us that the difficulty part has been overcome. But what about the great distance? Amy put down here in chat that it's a clue, and absolutely it's a clue. Those of you who predicted speed as the thing that's missing, yeah, that's the thing we haven't talked about. Yes, we completed it. Yes, it was without incident, so difficulty is checked off, but great distance. All right, so speed is a good one. I like that. Or what Nicole put in here, something that says it didn't take much time. Awesome. Let's look down through for those answers. We'll keep success maybe. I'll put a little star next to it, right? That would be what our default would be if we didn't have the clue of great distance. Renown. So it was completed with a whole lot of people knowing about it. No clues about that at all. Nothing about publications or critics or newspapers. Let's just get rid of B completely. Now, same thing maybe with accolades. There's nobody in particular that's been mentioned. So you can get accolades or rewards or references to your good character, but nothing in here about that as a clue whatsoever. So maybe we can get rid of those two right off the bat. Of the remaining ones, we tend to see a decent number of votes for results, but results is really not a clue for something from the beginning. If we had originally had a lot of these fail, which we don't know, but if we had originally had a lot of them fail, then maybe we could get some clues that say, oh, this one finally showed results when all of the other experiments failed. No clue, though, to tip us towards C, though. So it's got to be A, success, which is kind of our default, what many of us would have written, or something about speed. Oh, well, swiftness is down here. The problem is you do need to get both right. So we have success so far and we have swiftness. I feel like most of the time we have a lot of people miss alacrity because of not necessarily knowing what it means. But what if I told you that alacrity meant readiness, eagerness, a brisk pace? That's what alacrity meant. Oh, if we knew that alacrity, that vocabulary word, then that touches on a speed or a pace. Swiftness touches on a speed or a pace. Success is just a general reaffirmation of the words we already knew that it was completed without incident. Success does not give us something that adds to the sentence in a way to fill the rest of the blanks. It must be answer choices E and F. Now, if you missed that one because of the vocabulary word, I hasten to add a couple things. We do the vocabulary building in some of these sessions. Absolutely, that if you come back for GRE prep in general, if you come back for some of the other boot camps, sometimes we will run additional stuff for vocabulary. But the idea for vocabulary study in general is to really try and make sure we look for groups of words. Groups of words is the whole goal here. So not just memorizing prefixes, not just memorizing suffixes. Latin words are great, having those roots. Greek words are great, having those roots, but word groups. So what I really recommend you to do is actually pull up a thesaurus and put in any of the keywords that you start noticing as you're going through that you're missing, and make a flashcard that has that with 2, 3, 4 other of the synonyms also on that page. That way, when you remember that word, you now also remember the word group that it fell into. For example, if I had, let's use a classic word that maybe some of you know, gregarious. The word is gregarious. You see gregarious as an answer choice. If you already know it, awesome. But not a whole lot of real good roots in there. Gregarious. Might be easy to confuse it with like egregious, which has a lot of the same letters, maybe if we're reading fast. But if I put gregarious in a word group on a flashcard, I would put gregarious in there with maybe convivial or friendly or affable or amiable or genial. I would put it in there with all of these other words. So I've developed this word group. Affable, genial, convivial, friendly, gregarious. And if I see any of those 5 or 6 words, I can remember that group it fell into without having to go back to a prefix or having to go back to a Latin root and sound it all back out. So I do really recommend that as a strategy in general. A lot of people, unfortunately, just do vocab flashcards word by word. And I think that's really a mistake for your time. What you should really do is do some amount of words if you're just learning them for the first time ever, but immediately put them into flashcard groups. That way you can recognize them as sets. So again, we obviously have flashcard sets that come with GRE courses, but this is the sort of thing that no matter what, even if you're just doing it all on your own, making your own flashcards, that's the sort of thing that I always recommend to my students. And again, you're my students right now. So I recommend it strongly to you. Now, as far as attacking some more longer questions and longer work in sort of a reading comp strategy, what I'm going to do for this one is give you a minute, of course, like every question, but then at the end of 1 minute, what I want you to do is type down here in chat, how close are you to solving the problem? That's it. You don't have to give me the answer. You can poll in if you're done, but that's what I want to know. After 1 minute, how close are you to solving the problem? That's your only major task. Go for it. Question number 3. All right, that was exactly a minute. I had a question for you. What point are you in answering this question? 1 minute in. Hit me up down here in chat. That's what I want to know. That's time. I called it. Pencils down. Of course, not really pencils down. You don't even have to have pencils right now. But I want to know how we do. I see a lot of done coming here through chat. That's awesome. Gary, Hillary, Sarah, Angelica, Ellie, that's awesome. Now, if you are done, that's amazing. That's basically test day pacing. That's how fast we would want to go. We would want to be able to be done with a question this length in about a minute. Whew. Goodness. Well, how can we do that then? For those of you who aren't even close or who are only like 75% of the way there, how can you make sure you're doing this as efficiently as possible? I have a follow-up question for you. My follow-up question was, when you started this problem, when I said, go, you have 1 minute, did you start here reading? Did you start here with the question? Or did you start here looking at the answers? 1, 2, or 3. Where did you start? Did you start reading the original prompt, the stimulus? Did you start at 2, the question? Did you start at 3, looking at the answers? Where did you start? This is important. This is maybe going to blow some people's minds. Here's the thing. If we only have one question to do off of a stimulus like this, 1 paragraph stimulus, and we have 1 question to do, you don't know what from this paragraph you have to pay attention to yet. If we have something set up like this, where we get a brand new paragraph all out of nowhere, just 1 paragraph, we have to answer something about it. I don't know yet what I should pay attention to. Where am I going to find that thing that I need to pay attention to? Oh, you know where I'm going to find out where I should be reading and paying attention for and looking at? I'm going to find it out where it says number 2. Yeah, what must be true based on these statements. Okay, what must be true based on these statements, that means what can I infer? This is like those inferences that I told you about earlier. What can we infer if our expert Paul does not eat ice cream? So what we have to read through then of the original stimulus, going back up to 1, let me rewrite these. You should begin number 1 here. Then we should go number 2 to our paragraph. Okay, I'm reading for what is the big argument? What else can I say after reading that big argument? All right, well, so large retail customers happy, deliver products on time and at lower prices. Blah, 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 come on, happy. Our goal is to keep these guys happy. So I'm going to look through for an answer choice that says our goal is to keep wholesalers happy, to be on time, and to lower prices. Perfect. That's our goal. Our goal is to try and, well, look at how much easier that was to tackle the problem once we already knew what the question was first before jumping into that brand new paragraph. All right, well then let's scan through the answers. All right, question 3, answered first up, A. Looks like competitors will succeed if they adopt the same goal. Now, I didn't see that in the paragraph. I didn't see anything about whether the competitors would win or lose if they also did it. It's just that the competitors would fail if they didn't. We don't know if they would succeed if they did. Can't be the first one. Can't be A. How about B? The goal is to make sure we can cut wholesale prices. Yeah, well, there were a couple of things, right? Our goal is to make them happy, be on time, and cut prices, but any of those must be true. They don't all have to be tied in here together. Remember what I said earlier about our expert Paul not being able to eat ice cream? Well, if Paul doesn't eat ice cream, then I can infer that he is not eating ice cream. That's it. So if my prediction is they have to be happy, we have to deliver on time, and we have to cut costs, then any of those would be a valid solution. There we go. Answer choice B, as in booyah. Their goal is to cut prices. Finished. That's it. Any of those pieces that we could possibly see would match up. I love it. This is exactly the sort of thing that we want to grab on test day. And here's the problem. How many of you, you can say yes down here in chat, you read B and thought it was too easy? You thought you were looking for something a level above that, an inference a little bit further, maybe one or two steps beyond that we could get to if we assumed something, or we could get to if we made a prediction based off of this. We don't want assumptions, right? We don't want predictions. We want what must be true. So what I want you to do, anytime on the GRE, you see language like this: which of the following is most likely? Which of the following is a probable inference? I want you to scratch that out in your brains. Do not read that. Instead, read must be true. That's it. If answer choice B is true, and you think, oh, this is just a detail, this is just right there from the passage, from the paragraph, done. Yeah, we are done. That's it. Answer choice B as in booyah, finished. Now, again, some of the other answer choices could have been tempting. Answer choice C is talking about any toy manufacturer, but we don't know anything about those other manufacturers. D is talking about most retailers, but we never saw that language in the original paragraph. Most, many, all, none. We didn't have that language. And the final one about currently happy with the prices, well, we know that the company is continually trying to find ways to keep them happy. So this sounds like something that might be a little bit beyond what we truly know. Maybe that's the inference we're looking. Nope. Clear that thought out of your mind. We're not trying to look for something that maybe would be true, could be true, might be true. We're looking for the ones that must be true. And that's, again, that's sort of changing our mindset of how we're tackling these problems is all part of that, third and fourth bullet points that I put up here earlier, that critical thinking, looking for that match. And certainly the only sounds like it's pretty extreme, but the whole point here from our original paragraph was that this is our goal. Our goal is to keep them happy. And we can keep them happy by staying on time or by lowering prices. These are the only ways. Now let's take that a step further. Next up, absolutely, I have a bunch more questions coming to you, but I want to switch gears a little bit. We have like 3 or 4 more good ones, some good boot camp style questions, but we've got to take a look at some math. This would be a question that you might get at a high level within a quant section where we have some ratios. Ratios are going a little bit above and beyond. The numbers here turn out to be relatively simple, but beyond the numbers, there are really 2 shortcuts that we could use to tackle this. And I'll make sure I show you those alongside the actual math. But take about a minute. Question number 4, do some work. And of course, we'll review in 1 minute. Go for it. All right, that was exactly a minute. I see a bunch of answers rolling through our answer poll, but hit me up down here in chat. I want to know, was there one thing you used to shortcut the answers? I'll give you a second to write it out. Was there something you used to shortcut through the answers? And of course, we have a couple things listed down here in the bottom right. I don't know if any of you have been noticing as we've been following along, but for each of the questions, there is a Kaplan Foundation content area that we use. And one of them is that back solving. Exactly. Jamie, absolutely. Howard, cool. And back solving can actually help us a ton. Yes, there is some arithmetic we can do and really some advanced arithmetic we can do. We can do the brute force math. And I'll show it to you if you want. But we have ratios, and ratios inherently give us some clues. I like what Kirk put in here, looking for an odd number. I like, of course, what Florenzi and others put in here, back solving in general. But back solving, for any of you who haven't heard that term before, back solving means taking the answer choices that exist because they are numbers and plugging them back in and testing those out. Sure, absolutely. We can do that. But the way we normally teach back solving, like in the pure Kaplan strategy method, is we teach checking the answer choice B, because they're always going to be ranked in order, checking B, plugging it in. If it's a little bit high or a little bit low, that tells us whether we can answer B or answer A, or whether we have to check something else. Right? At that point, we generally check D, because that will also tell us, do we have to be a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller? How does that number work in the relationships or in the formulas from the passage? So yeah, we could use back solving that way, in the really classical way where we have no clues at all and we're just kind of plugging in numbers to chug through. But clues, folks, clues, that's what we need. In the problem, it said we started out with a ratio of 3 to 2. Okay, well then the original number of chips would have to be divisible by 5. 3 to 2 is 3 things to every 2 things, so that's a set of 5. Cool, divisible by 5. Now, something else happened, right? We added 3 and removed 3, and we ended up getting a set that had a 2 to 1 ratio. But we haven't changed the total number of chips. We just took 3 from one side and added it to the other. So as it says, the total number of chips in both stacks hasn't changed, right? Adding that whole thing up, we still have the same constant chips. We've just allocated them a little bit differently, so it changed the ratio for some reason. But it changed the ratio such that every 2 matches up with a 1. 2 to 1, okay, so that means it should be divisible by 3. So I'm looking for an answer that's divisible by 5. Well, then that gets rid of this one. And then I'm looking for an answer that's divisible by 3. Well, that gets rid of this one. And this one. If I'm looking for something divisible by 5 and divisible by 3, the only ones that are divisible by both 5 and 3 is A or C. There's absolutely no chance. I'm only 20 seconds, 30 seconds into this problem, and I'm down to 50-50. There's no chance I will choose one of the other wrong answers. That's the goal of looking for those clues. That's the goal of this advanced arithmetic application. Now let's use back solving. Sure, totally. Let's plug in. But now I get to choose. Do you want to plug in 30 or do you want to plug in 45? Totally up to you. We can do either one. Let's say we plug in 45. If we plug in 45, then we're plugging it into the relationship they gave us. So they gave us that for every 3 out of 5, that will give us the S stack. So the S stack is 3 over 5 times 45. That gives us 27 total for the S stack. Okay, well then the S stack is only part of the game though. The S stack from subtracted out from 45 gives us the t stack. Okay, so now we have how many t is. Why was this important? Why are we even doing this step? Well, because we want to find out, does this work? Does this actually give us a 2-to-1 proportion once we finish out? Because so far, this is busy work. I'm just solving for, if I had 45, how many are S and how many are T? I'm just doing the busy work so that I can get to the next step. The next step being, let's add 3 to S. Let's remove 3 from T, and let's see what we get for a ratio. If we do that, we get 30 over 15, which is 2 over 1. Ah, that's exactly what I wanted. All right, perfect. Answer choice C, 45, done. Now I have a follow-up question for you down here in chat, and I want a specific answer. What if we had gotten to that last end of that step, and it had been something like 19 over 15? What if it had been something that doesn't reduce, doesn't give us 2 over 1? What do we do then? Looking for a very specific answer. What would we do then? Besides, honestly, like for a second, just double check that our work maybe. Yeah, boom, Amy, yes, absolutely. Jaslyn, yes. Pick A. Check off A. I hope that's what you meant. Check off A, right? Because we're picking A, right? If 45 does not work, if it gives you a rubbish answer, there is only one other answer that remains. We do not have to work through the other one. If we crossed out 40, 48, and 50 because they didn't satisfy our original conditions, and we just tested one of them, and it gave us out rubbish, there is only one answer that remains. Pick it, move on. Now, I put that out there with a caveat. The caveat is, making sure that we just double check our math that we did in the first place. Now, if you have time, if quant is an area that you have a lot of proficiency in, and you end up with an extra 4 or 5 minutes all the time, yeah, then it's not going to hurt you to go through and double check A, I guess, and just make sure that it works. But at that point, you're sort of spending time that you could put towards something else. Honestly, on this problem, if I hit this one on test day, I would choose, again, assuming that the math didn't come out right for 45, I would choose A, move on, right? I could always double check. I could always, plug back in if I had extra time. But anytime you're doing that, you're essentially wasting time that you could spend somewhere else. As Kat put down here in chat, 1 right, 4 rotten. If we got rid of all 4 rotten, we're done. And we're not done yet. We have a little bit more work to do. We have a few more questions coming up at you. So let's jump in and take a look at a little bit of a tricky looking question. Sort of like I think this one was a little tricky looking, but that we can actually get some critical thinking attack strategy for that saves us from going down the line of just becoming overwhelmed. I'll give you a minute, like I've been doing. Take a look at question number 5, but I have the same question on this one that I had for that reading comp one. At the end of a minute, I want to know how far you've gotten in solving the problem. That's it. No, there's no judgment. I just want to know. Hit me up. Question 5. All right, that was a minute. Hit me up down here in chat. Where are you at? How far did you get? We are a minute into this problem. Question number 5. Hit me up in chat. Finished? Still working on it? Not sure where to start? Tried to plug into a formula? How we doing? Now, certainly, if you noticed on the right-hand side, some of our key indicators, this is a word problem. Clearly, we have to transcribe this out of a word problem format. There's some combinations and permutation stuff in here we might have to play with. All right, cool. So this one, too overwhelmed, Jamie? Now, I see a lot of people saying, not really sure what to do or how to solve it, or maybe still working clearly. And that's fine. I just wanted to get a good gut check to see where we're at, because this is a question that in the future, when you see this one again, this one will be a minute or less. Now, I could teach you the combinations and permutations part of it. We could actually plug in for some formulas, but I could teach you something else instead that's faster. I assume you would want that. I assume you'd want the faster one. So let me ignore the problem that you got completely and ask you a different question. All right. You have to set a PIN on the credit card that you use, or on the bank account that you use, or on the ATM card that you use. You have to set a PIN, right? A 4-number code, not the crazy problem here on screen, but just a regular PIN that uses the numbers 0 through 9. Okay, hit me up down here in chat. How many possible PINs, assuming we could use any of the numbers 0 through 9 for any of the positions, how many possible PINs exist? Given that you could use any of those for any of the 4 positions of your PIN. Ignore the problem on screen. I already crossed it out. How many possibilities? How many possible PINs? Now, I always see a lot of factorials come through answers. Whenever I ask this question, I see a lot of big numbers come through here. Let me show you the shortcut to this one. So how many numbers are there 0 through 9? Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 10. 10 total things I could choose from, right? There we go. Absolutely, Steve. 10 options. All right, and I can put it in place 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so any of those 10 could be in this position. I can pick any of those numbers. I'm not restricted. All right. And then any of those 10 could be in the next position. Right? I'm not restricted. And then any of those 10 could be here. And then any of those 10 could be here. Yeah, now I'm starting to see the answers I wanted to see. Ariana, awesome. Rachel, yes, absolutely. So 10 for the first, by 10 for the second, by 10 for the third, by 10 for the fourth. Oh, a 1 with 4 zeros. Yeah, 10,000 options. That's my answer. That's it. No factorial necessary. No combinations formula necessary. I just take the literal place that I can put stuff, tell me how many options go there, and then work from that. And Sarah, so extra stars for you. If I missed you earlier on, absolutely. So that's our strategy. If that's our strategy, then how can we use that for the original problem up there at the beginning? Let me move this stuff maybe down here a little bit off to the side, just so you can still see it, in case anybody wants to copy that down. But let's look at this original piece here. So I had at the beginning 4 different spaces that I could put stuff. And they made it a little bit more complicated. It's going to take a little bit more work, but I can find all the information I need. 0 through 40 are my options to begin with. And the first one has to be a multiple of 5. Okay, so for my 4 positions, first one has to be a multiple of 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 gives me 8. 9, though, because 0 is a multiple of 5. It's 5 times 0. So 9 possible things could go in this first spot. All right, next up. Next up, they told me that this one has to be a factor of 28. Okay, a factor of 28. So 1, 2, 4, 7, 14, 28. Okay, so I get 6. All right, 6 goes to my next spot. Third number must be even. 2, 4, 6. So 40 divided by 2, right? That'll be all the evens. Gives me 20. All of the above 0, 20. 0 is also an even number. So 20 for this spot plus 0 is 21. So this next position has to be 21 since 0 is an even number. Any even number can be represented by 2 times n, where n is an integer. Any odd number can be represented by 2n plus 1. So 0 must be even by default, by definition. Now, finally, the last thing that the problem gave us was that the fourth number must be odd. So this would actually be all of the other ones between 0 and 40. So if there were 21 total positions and there were 20 in-betweens, this must be that 40 divided by 2, aka 20. So now 9 times 6 times 21 times 20. And the reason I gave you that simpler problem to start with, the problem down here at the bottom, was because I wanted to show off this is our method. What if we just had to do this method with simple 0 through 9 and we didn't have any new rules at any point in the problem? Then yeah, it would have just been 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. But because this problem gave us a requirement for each spot, it's 9 times 6 times 21 times 20. So multiply each of these across. 9 times 6 times 21 times 20 had better give us 22,680. Done. Now I say done, but this is obviously a high level problem. This is a problem that's requiring us to really look at some number properties. Where do zeros count as far as like, are they evens or odds? Or are they multiples or not? And it's going above and beyond what most combination and permutation problems are looking for. But the point to take away from this is that even if you maybe missed number 5, even if this is one that you're going to put a star next to and come back to later and look at again, if you missed it, but you understand this one, but you understand how we would do it if it was just a standard PIN that you're using for your bank card, then you know the method. That's the key part to this. Knowing the method is the shortcut to doing this. The little bit of a tricky part that tends to throw people off is actually just a pure number properties issue. Where does 0 count as far as being even? Where does 0 count as far as being a multiple of 5? Right? That's a number properties thing. That's not the method. The method was, let's avoid combinations. Let's avoid permutations. Let's just jump in and do this place, this place, this place, this place, multiply across. Now, again, I love the questions that I'm seeing down here in chat, but what I'm seeing mostly is a lot of them about the number properties. Hit me up in chat. I want to get a yes or a heck yes or an approval. You understand the PIN method that we covered at the very bottom in that bonus problem that I threw together. Even if you missed a 0 as even, or you missed a 0 as a multiple of 5, you know what to do if you get this style problem again at the foundation fundamental level. You know what this problem is requiring you to do. It's not some fancy, factorial permutation rubbish. We can shortcut that stuff. Nice. I like the absolutely, Bobby Wall. I love it. Now we've got a couple more questions to do. They're going to be a little bit more of some of this math content just to try and make sure we've got a good handle on all of it. Let's jump in. Take a look. Bam. I will be quiet like I always do. I'm going to give you about a minute on this one. This is the sort of thing, again, like the last couple problems, I hope you're noticing in boot camp, we're really trying to test you a little bit above and beyond just plug and chug, getting a better feel for approximation or critical thinking or working around the problem. Go for it. Take a minute. Problem number 6. All right, that is time. That is about a minute. And for any of our quantitative comparison questions, we're really always looking at the same set of answers. A is greater, B is greater, they are equal, or cannot be determined. Now, while we do occasionally get all of these different answer choices as possible, including the cannot be determined, generally the cannot be determined comes up in questions where we have multiple variables or multiple scenarios, and there's a lot more stuff going on than a problem like 6. If they're exactly equal, we would have to know some specific information to get that perfect exact number for both columns. But that could certainly be possible since we already have a pure number for quantity B. No matter what, though, as Kat put down here in chat, we never really have to look at the answer choices. It's always going to be A, is A bigger? B, is B bigger? C, is equal? D, can't tell. So we're going to have to figure out a way to kind of approximate what we're seeing here to maybe figure out, all right, given 28, whatever that number means, how does the actual area of this guy match up? Well, area of a triangle. The area of a triangle should be base times height. Now, it doesn't matter what this unknown little chunk is per se. 7 is the base. So 7 equals base. This h, though, h is the height. But I don't know what that is. And I don't know what that little question marky thing is, though, either. It's clearly a right triangle. It clearly has a hypotenuse that's 8, but I don't know what h is. Maybe I could do a little approximation. Let's approximate and just start by saying if the hypotenuse is 8 and we have a right triangle, then h has to be less than 8. Not even less than or equal. It has to be less than 8. We can't have a right triangle where the hypotenuse and the longest leg are the same size. So it must be the case that h is less than 8. Well, then I know that the upper end then of my height, and I know exactly what the base is. Okay, so the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. That means it has to equal 1/2, well, base is 7, times 8 maximum. So let's change this from an equal to a less than, since it maxes out at 8. All right, 1/2 7 times 8. So 1/2 of 8 is 4. 4 times 7 is 28. So explicitly, the area must be less than 28. It can't be equal. It can't be more. We top out. The maximum number that we could possibly get that height to be is close to 8. Not ever hitting it, but close to, assuming that that little incremental, little question marky nub is as small and small as possible. Well, then we have our answer. Area is explicitly less than 28. Done. Answer choice B, as in booyah, B is greater because A must be less than. All right, finished. Now, again, this is a sort of question where we want to consistently, carefully go through and solve. I saw Sarah's comment down here in chat, right? Second guessing with the work that you had done in the first place. But no, this is a sort of problem where a lot of people can go into it trying to do too much, right? Trying to solve for that unknown triangle there. Well, we don't have any of the angles, A, B, C. We don't know what any of the sines or cosines would be. We can't use any of those fancy formulas from Euclidean geometry or Eulerian geometry. We don't know any of that stuff to actually plug in. So we have to approximate. But the approximation is based off of a maximum we could possibly get to. All right, done. We're actually still not done. We do have a little bit more work to do. In fact, we got to do one more problem. I'll just put all the math up there again in case anybody was copying that out or looking for that again. But the last problem that we're going to do also could be done in a long, drawn-out way, or could be done with some of these cooler critical thinking shortcuts. So for all of the problems we've done today, I just want to reiterate, I always encourage you to, when you're practicing, practice doing whatever math step you first think of. Sure, traditional math, brute force math, whatever it is. But then, because you can, since you're practicing and it doesn't count yet, always look for a second way. At least now, while you're practicing. Because that will eventually help you spot those and find those on the real test. That's my heads up before we do this one. Go for it. Question number 7, same deal. Take a minute. I will be quiet. Go for it. All right, that was exactly a minute. We are ready to jump in and tackle this, but there's a couple pieces to this that tend to throw everybody off. My goal is to help you walk through the parts we actually care about. Y equals Z. Great. Okay, maybe that will help. And each of these are bigger than 1. Now, maybe that will help because we care about the quantity difference between A and B from either side. So if we know that there is an imbalance, like the numerator is bigger in A or bigger in B or something, if there's an imbalance, we can use that to solve. I don't need that then. The X, Y, and Z are greater than 1. I don't need that value until I figure out where the imbalance exists. This is the shortcut. So let's plug in y equals z and look at each of the pieces that we have. All right, in A, I have an xy cubed, and in B, I have an xy. Well, if I plug in y equals z, I have an xy cubed as well. Okay, so then those first two terms are equal. They're not an imbalance. Let's do the same thing maybe with the last term in this set, xy squared. Well, xy squared and then xyz, well, again, if I plug in y equals z, that's also an xy squared piece, not an imbalance. Get rid of it. Doesn't make a difference in the problem. Now, just for funsies, because I could pick any of these next to do, let's pick the one on the very bottom. X squared yz, well, okay, so y equals z, so x squared y cubed on the bottom, and then x squared y cubed on the bottom. So each of these terms so far have canceled out. The only determining factor, the only thing I really have to figure out is xy squared compared to xyz squared. That's the only thing different, and it's in the numerator. So if each of those values are bigger than 1, then I have xy squared, all bigger than 1, and I have xyz squared. So I have 3 terms on the left, x, y, y. I have 4 terms on the right, x, y, z, z. So I have more stuff on the right-hand side. Oh, more stuff that are all bigger than 1 that I'm multiplying by each other. There we go. Answer choice B, as in boom goes the dynamite. And we are actually done. This is really to what Kirk put down here in chat, right? This is simple algebra functions like we put over here on the right-hand side. When you see problems that look ridiculously complex, remember that the GRE is designed such that each problem should be solvable in about a minute. That means if you're plugging through a problem and you feel like you are doing way too much work, you probably are. I hate to say it, right? This is the sort of thing where we are trying to carefully, systematically shave off the extra work, trying to remove the blinders, remove the fog, remove the thing that's standing in your way, which is generally the years and years of time that you have spent being forced to show your work, being forced to do all of the brute force methods and show your steps and traditional math. But the GRE rewards people who pick the right answer. That's the goal. Pick the right answer. If we do a shortcut, if we eliminate all of the extra fluff, if we just look at the thing that's important, then we saved that extra 15, 20, 30 seconds. We got that right answer without ruining our minds and steam coming out of our ears. So I love Howard's comment down here in chat. But that's our goal, right? That's the whole reason we're here. That's the reason you came to this boot camp session, was to try and figure out what are the things you can do to really succeed, to really pick up that next step and that pace for what you need to be able to do for test day. That said, let's talk about those. What are some of the things that you want to be doing between now and testing, no matter when your test actually is? First up, on screen. I mean, the whole goal here, I hope, is to kind of hit what Howard put here in chat. Of course, welcome, Connor. This is what I'm here for, is to try and figure out what can you do, right? It's not just going back over old textbooks. That's unfortunately what a lot of people do before they come to our bootcamp sessions, before they know about critical thinking or Kaplan methods or strategies that you can apply. We do not need you to be going back through your old textbooks and looking at old geometry books and algebra books. Instead, what we want you to be able to do is understand the strategies we've been applying. Whether you missed some or many of the problem set we did today, that's not the point. The point is not to get everything right. The point is to learn the strategy, know how to apply that to a simpler problem, to an even harder problem, and then to continue realistic practice with GRE questions so you're doing the same sort of thing that you would actually see on test day. Having additional practice tests, having additional expertise that you can talk to, I mean, that's part of, I hope, why you came here today, was to get some of that additional feedback and additional coaching. That's really what I'm here for, right? This is a session where I'm just here to try and give you that additional feedback and coaching. And of course, that's what the other GRE experts are doing behind the scenes. If you have questions about how to use resources or what to do next or what is available to you, obviously hit us up in chat. We'll try and grab those. Hit up any of our experts privately. But at this point, each of those key pieces, right, thinking about practice questions is really making sure that you can drill in to all of the questions and explanations. And we have a resource for that. It's called QBank. Being able to do full-length tests, yeah, we have practice test package that give you all of the full-length test access and the flashcards I talked about earlier. If you want the most realistic option, there is an option to actually take it at a Prometric testing center. So unlike this, where it kind of maybe feels like you can be in your pajamas, you can have a cup of coffee and a slice of pizza, if you're actually going into the official test day experience, you're in a Prometric center. You're actively feeling the experience of test day anxiety or jitters and overcoming them and solving them so that you know exactly what it will feel like on test day. You're not shocked. You're not surprised. I saw that about 3/4 of the group that's here today have not taken the GRE before. So this will be your first time out. This will help solve some of those issues. And then finally, the GRE math is an area that a lot of us just don't have as much experience looking for those shortcuts, looking for the strategy to get to the right answer as quickly as possible without wasting time or doing all that brute force stumbling around. And that's Math Foundations. We have that too. So overall, right, my whole goal here is to show you what resources you have. There are lots of additional resources out there. We do private coaching. A couple people down here in chat talked about tutoring, about additional books or practice or full-length options. These are all obviously resources that I hope you know about, and I hope you do take advantage of in some way or another. The thing that I hate the most is when students come into my class and they say, you know what, I used my old Gen Chem textbook to study for the medical college test, or I used my old chemistry book to study for the GRE, or I used my old algebra book to study for the SAT, and I didn't do well, and I need your class now, and I have unfortunately spent dozens or sometimes hundreds of hours and money doing all this other stuff that didn't work. That's the worst for me. I always like to give the most streamlined, efficient, lazy way to do it. The laziest efficient way is the way to get to that answer and move on. Now, there are some other things that most people don't actually know about. One of them is GRE Channel. I love GRE Channel. Some of my favorite instructors teach on GRE Channel, and it's a chance to basically get specific foundation, high yield answers, explanations. What do you need the most? Do you need some specific help with combined rate problems? Do you need some specific help with how to understand argument parameters and reading comp? What is the thing that we can fix? Boom, that's what this is. These are live sessions that we hold that you can actually kind of sit in like Netflix and tune into the problem that you need solved with an expert who specifically knows how to solve that problem for you. It's almost like getting private tutoring built in to the options. Now, if you're wondering where that option exists, let me hit you with 2 more points before I kind of finish out this part and turn it over to general questions, general concerns, things that I can answer for you. First up, in terms of that idea of kind of building something that is designed specifically around what you need the most, probably the best example of that is this on screen, right? Is Smart Reports. Smart Reports is the way to give you that personalized, confident, adaptive feedback based on what you've done so far, what you still need to do, and how to get there. Again, like I said earlier, lazy efficiency is sort of my motto. I want to get the stuff done that I need to, but in as efficient a way as possible without having to just beat myself up and do the long drawn out way. So the Smart Reports gives you that opportunity. Oh, you're already rocking out this one section? Cool. Don't study that right now. Here's your other area of opportunity. Do that first. Now, this comes with everything, right? Any course option, any private option, whatever you're looking at for tutoring or for doing it on your own or online, or all of them come with this. So this is not some special thing you have to buy separately. This is with every course. The differences between the courses, though, do sometimes confuse people. So let me hit you with the basics for who I generally see in each of the different types of instruction that I teach. If you're sitting here right now thinking, you know what, I like having classes later in the evening. I like being able to bring a cup of coffee, a slice of pizza, maybe just like be in my living room. This is working out pretty well. I feel engaged. I feel like I can ask questions. I can get feedback. Then you are probably matching up best with live online. You have your own life. You have your own responsibilities. You don't necessarily want to drive to a particular place at a particular time of day. You want to be at home, maybe doing your laundry, and then, oh, it's time. I got to sign in. Perfect. Pull up your couch, grab a slice of pizza, have class. If you're hearing me say that and going, no, that would never work. I would forget. I would get distracted. I would have the TV on. Then you are probably considering in person, an actual classroom, an actual university setting. This is your best option. And there, if you go to captest.com/GRE and put in your zip code, it will tell you all of the upcoming class sessions that are nearby. And then you can go shake hands with your instructor, meet the other classmates, and actually be in a physical classroom like most of us are used to. If those two things so far, the thing that you have thought is, I could probably do this on my own though, then you're looking at self-paced. Self-paced is for the people who say, you know what, I don't want to do that. I don't want a teacher. I don't want to have to come to class. I want to just have the resources. Just give me all of them. Just give me all of the resources, all of the tests, all of the quizzes, the adaptive feedback engine that tells me what to do when. Give me access to it all, maybe some like recordings or videos that I can watch, and I'll do them on my own. I'll log in from midnight to 4 a.m. and do them, outside of when you would even have class sessions. Sure, that's your best option. Finally, if you've been watching our session today and maybe the reading comp was way harder than you thought, or there's certain math concepts we covered that were unfortunately things you just don't remember, even from high school maybe, then you might consider adding private tutoring onto a course. All of the tutoring options that you see on the CapTest homepage include having the course plus the tutoring on top of it. So you'll get everything we've talked about, all of the courses, live online or in person, your choice, and then an additional expert to sit down with you and say, hey, here's that math concept again in a different way, above and beyond the videos that you already have and the questions you already have and the course you already have. Here's another way to think about it because you haven't seen it in 6 or 7 years. Now, with that, like I said, my goal here is to coach. So if you have questions, if you have concerns we haven't covered or the other experts in room haven't covered, hit me up down here in chat. I want to know what those are. I will say there were 2 more questions that I saw a few times so far, maybe from a lot of people who are thinking about signing up for options. Let me hit those 2 while I look for some more questions that might come here through chat. The first of those 2 was essentially, what are the differences between each of those options, above and beyond the example that I gave of who normally signs up for what. Here you go. On screen, peruse at your leisure. The GRE channel is that third thing down. That's the one that everything except for just the pure self-paced has. Everything that's plus or normal prep has that GRE channel. That's sort of like Netflix for GRE. I kind of like to think of it that way too, because a lot of the people that we have hosting, a lot of the instructors who teach on GRE channel are pretty fun characters. I like the cohort. I like the group. Now, if there's something here on this page that you're looking for that you're not sure about or that you want more details about, hit us up down here in chat. Send it to some of the experts. I know the experts are answering a lot of questions one-on-one, giving a lot of feedback on people who are thinking about different options or signing up for different options. I'll let them continue those private conversations. I'm so psyched that they are here to give you some of those answers in real time. But you can always give us a call later if you're not sure between a couple options. The 1-800-CAP test number during normal business hours to just say, yeah, I'm down between GRE Prep Plus and regular prep. I know that there's a lot more things that come with Plus, like the foundations and the advanced math and the coaching, but what does it break out to? Right? Can you give me a little more detail? Sure. Contact us later. You have at the top of the chat, you have that You Can Book Me link. This is a way to reach out to us later, one of us, and we'll call you back and give you a chance to kind of talk through some options. But before you head out, the one question that I keep seeing private conversations spring up among expert Steve or Paul or Michelle or any of the other GRE experts we've got answering questions, I keep seeing this question about worth. Right? What is the class worth? What does it give me? What is the guarantee for the class that if I'm going to take this above just buying books on my own, for example? My best answer to that is really this, right? The high score guarantee. We operate around the premise that, you know what? We have to get you a higher score no matter what. That's our goal. We're going to get you a higher score. Now, you'll come in with a score that already exists from taking the GRE in the past, or you'll come in and you'll take a full diagnostic exam where you sit down and you take the entire GRE in one of our tests and use that as our baseline. Whatever it is, that's your baseline score, and we'll use that to gauge your improvement. And I say improvement because in all of the GRE classes that I have taught yet to date, I haven't seen anybody not improve in their score. And that's 13 years of my experience. Now, sure, possible, maybe, but I just haven't seen it. High score guaranteed or your money back is our baseline promise. If your score didn't go up, we haven't given you the service you bought, take all of your money back. Now, what I love about working here at Kaplan is that this is not the end of the commitment we've got to you. If you want to read more about it, captest.com/HSG, that's high score guarantee. But the point is that it's not just that if your score doesn't improve, it's that if you don't feel ready to take the test, you feel stressed, you feel anxious, you cancel it, we'll give you the whole course again for free. We must not have given you enough help if you felt you were so stressed and so unready that you canceled taking the test. Take the whole course again for free. Done. Similarly, I have a lot of students who start out with very low scores or middling scores, and they improve. They improve a significant amount as far as I'm concerned. Going from 20th or 30th percentile to 50th or 60th percentile is a huge jump. But it's not where they want to be. So we call that the satisfaction component of this. And you can read more about it at captest.com/HSG. But the satisfaction component is if you go up, let's say 20, 30, 40 percentile points, but you're still at the 60th or 70th percentile range, then you're not really in that sweet spot for matriculation. You're not in the range that schools are vying for you. You're just still kind of applying and hoping to get in. So maybe you're not satisfied. You went up 30 points or 30 percentile points, excuse me. Then, all right, you want more? Fine. Satisfaction, high score guarantee. Essentially built in a free second run through the course, no matter what. Right? You have to come to class. You have to have at least done the quiz in order to show us that you participated, but that's it. Now you have the entire course again for free because you increased a ton, but not to the level you wanted. I actually had a student do this recently who improved, I think it was like 33 or 34 percentile points. They were down maybe 40th percentile or 30th percentile, somewhere in that range, and they went up to the 70th percentile range. Awesome. They're beating out 70% of the competition taking the GRE. But they wanted that 80th, 90th percentile range for the competitive programs they were shooting for. So they actually took the whole course again for free. They said, hey, Eli, no hard feelings. I improved a ton. I loved it, but I'm really shooting for this competitive group. I need to apply for satisfaction. I need to get that high score guarantee going. And of course they did, right? Simple. All you do, call in, confirm, done, whole course again for free. And of course, this is a nice story for me to tell. I did not get to teach them again the second time. One of my colleagues, Gene Suhir, who teaches a lot on GRE channel, he ended up getting my student and taught them again. And granted, I improved my student 35 percentile points. Gene only helped them go up like 15 percentile points, but there wasn't that much room left to go. So of course they took it again. They got in the 85 to 90th percentile range, super happy, super excited, and got into the school that they were shooting for. So nice little story to end our session with, and also to just reaffirm a lot of the conversations that a lot of the students I've noticed have been having with some of our other experts up here in room. With that, if you do have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Toss them down here in chat. I'll grab those. I'll actually flip us back to that last slide because I saw a couple of questions about what were the differences between each one. I'll leave this up. And of course, you can keep chatting with us. We'll stick around. All of the other GRE experts, thank you again for all of the hard work that my colleagues have been doing, answering questions, giving some one-on-one, fielding responses to study tips or test strategies. If you have anything else we can do, or I can personally answer, happy to answer that down here in chat. But just to kind of signal that we are done with our session, I'll go off microphone, I'll go off camera, I'll sign off. So with that, thank you again for coming today. Congratulations on taking this step, putting in the effort to see the improvement in the score that you deserve for the amount of time and work you're putting in. Take care, and no matter what, good luck studying.